We have been waiting on the edge of our seats for a couple of weeks now to find out, will the raise of the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2025 happen on the COVID aid bill? And now it's looking like even less likely that it will, because the Senate parliamentarian has ruled that a plan to gradually increase the federal minimum wage does not fit the complicated rules that govern budget bills in the Senate. Democrats had been bracing for the measure to be removed from the bill, which I love because it sort of implies that there are lots of elected Democrats that desperately want this to happen. There are some, they're not like, no, please let us do it. But anyway, some were, and the path to an increase is much more difficult in the Senate, where most legislation needs 60 votes to avoid a filibuster. Obviously, allowing it to pass under reconciliation rules would have avoided that. Senate Republicans are almost uniformly opposed to the plan, and a standalone bill to increase the minimum wage, introduced by Senate Budget Committee Chairman Bernie Sanders, and it's still nice to say that, has 37 co-sponsors, which I checked is not the number of Democrats in the Senate, by the way, which not everybody has to co-sponsor something to support it, but it's certainly a show of support. And so we're gonna discuss a couple different aspects of this, Brett, but really fast, I just want to remind everyone what it means when Senate Republicans are almost uniformly opposed to the plan. The plan is to give the people who make the least money in the country a little bit more money, and every single one of them opposes it. So I just want people to understand that this is the party that represents people filled with economic anxiety, and they desperately want them to not have more money.
Yes. So the very easy thing to understand is that Republicans are opposed to a $15 an hour minimum wage. The thing that's slightly more difficult to understand, but for wildly different reasons, is why Democrats have been, why two Democrats in particular are opposed to the minimum wage being raised to $15 an hour. You look at Kristen Sinema and you look at Joe Manchin, who's being outflanked in his own state by the Republican governor who changed from being a Democrat to being a Republican. So in many ways, he's bolder than Joe Manchin in that he actually, takes off the sheep's clothing and says, I am indeed a wolf. And that guy, even that guy is like, yeah, we should have a $15 an hour minimum wage. In places like Missouri, where Josh Hawley was able to become the senator, unseating a Democrat, that state itself supports a $15 minimum wage. Whenever it's on the ballot, it works. People pass it, and it is so difficult to understand why a Democrat and Republican or a Democrat-controlled government of the United States in all three two houses of Congress and the executive branch, why this is so difficult. And the truth is with this, and so now it seems like they're at a point not where they have to regroup as a result of a call made by the parliamentarian. They're at a point where they have to decide, do we go forward with the very real thing we can do, which is just say, thanks for the recommendation, parliamentarian, we're gonna proceed. And that's why I brought up Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, because under that, according to all analysis I've read and reporting, those two, because it wouldn't follow the Senate rules, they're out.
Because they just care about the rules. That's what they care about. They don't have a problem with the policy, except that they also, especially Joe Manchin, definitely have a problem with the policy. They just have a problem with the violation of the rules. That's what it is. And so what that means, and we're gonna make a whiteboard of this. We just need to make it slightly more explicit. They are in favor of the rules. So they have their concern about the rules, and then they have their approach to the actual policy, and they are choosing the rules over the policy. So I don't think that it is unfair to say they care more about their own modern interpretation of arcane Senate tradition than they do about issues such as raising the minimum wage, providing health insurance to individuals, passing the Equality Act, theoretically. We have to see, maybe in the next week we'll know. But assuming that all of those things won't be able to pass a Republican implied filibuster on literally every piece of legislation, and assuming they still will support the filibuster continuing, it is not just they like the rules, it's they value their own interpretation of the rules more than they value delivering on all of these promises that Democrats have been running on for literally years. So, but you're very clear about that.
You're giving them the benefit of the doubt that that's actually how they feel, is that they want to value the rules. when every bit of
I don't
analysis.
actually, it's sarcastic.
Right, exactly.
But yes.
Right, but
yes.
that is the nicest you can be. Again, John being the nicest you can be, but that's the nicest you can be to them. When in reality, we all know that there are a bunch of other factors that are going into this. People like when good things happen to them. I hate to break it to you, but people who don't make $15 an hour get happier when they make $15 an hour. And just from a purely political standpoint, this is such a bonehead move from the Democrats, and they think it's brilliant, which is the most disgusting thing about it. They're like, yes, I have an excuse not to do this thing that I want to do, that everyone wants me to do, and I've kind of promised them that I would do, and is wildly popular. They think this is a great way to like say, it's not my fault, it's their fault.
Yeah. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.